No, you're good.
I'm Mary. I'm Linda, and we're with my sisters in the kitchen, and we're here at the Hilton Gardens Inn in Sherman. And we just, Charles and Nell drove up to be with us, and Sherry and her daughter, Mary is here with us. So we just thought we would let Charles talk a little bit. Linda, if you want to
Well, first of all, we want to say Happy Veterans Day to everybody. Today's Veterans Day. We have many, many veterans in our family. Our dad, as y'all know, served in World War I. Our Pete Paul served in Pete Paul served in World War I. Daddy served in World War II. And then my husband was in the Vietnam era. He was stationed in Germany, but he served in the Air Force during Vietnam era. Mary's husband, my husband was in the Marines during the Vietnam era. And then Grace and Charles Nell's daughter and son, I'll let them tell that.
They were both in the Army and were during the Gulf War in 1990, the Gulf War in Iraq.
I remember when it started and when it went from into the World War and the student remains. But Mama couldn't spend the night with us because she did not want to be home by herself when her baby was when the war was fixing to start. And we got lots and lots of cousins that served in the different wars and in the military too. Yes. But I remember that Aaron, he told me that he wrote us a letter. We got a letter, and he said they had to go through all their stuff to make sure there was no names or anything in it to get rid of them because the war was fixing to start. And we got a letter from him, and I remember that night. Of course, there was a lot of people praying, but I know my mama was praying. So Grace and Aaron, especially because they were over there right in the big battle. So we appreciate all of our veterans, past and present. We would try to name the names, but we would leave somebody off. Our uncles, many of our uncles served. Charles, is there anything you want to say about the veterans?
Well, Grace and Aaron, both of them wanted to be in the service. And so they applied for military intelligence. So they had to give them test after test after test. So they sent them to school, and both of them learned to speak Arabic. And of course, little did they know the Gulf War was not going on when they joined up. And so just as before they even got through with their schooling, well, actually Grace was through with her schooling, but Aaron was not. Out at Presidio in California, they told them, they said, you're going overseas right now. They loaded them up. They sent them to Saudi Arabia over there for the Gulf War. And my son was in, he was in not Big Springs, San Angelo, at another one of the schools. And he called me and he said, you've got to come down and get all of my clothes and my books and everything. He said, I'm being shipped out immediately. So I got my pickup and I went down there expecting to find a passport box. He said, I got everything in a box. So I drove up on the base, and there was a box out there. I swear it was 6 foot. I don't know what come in it. It was 6 foot square. It probably weighed 500 pounds. And they were soldiers all over the place. So we grabbed a handful of soldiers and they loaded it in the back of the pickup. It was full of books. My goodness, he had everything he had studied was in there. And he went right directly to Iraq. I mean, just they sent them over there immediately. And after just about 2 months, Grace called and she said, I said, where you at? She said, I'm in Germany. And I said, well, what are you doing in Germany? And she said, well, I'm being shipped home. And I said, why are you being shipped home? She said, well, because when I got over there, she was married to a soldier. And she said, when I got over here, I found out that I was expecting, and I didn't know it when I left. And she said, they've got no place in Saudi Arabia for expecting lady. So they sent her back to Fort Stewart, Georgia, and she did the same thing in a building over there. There was a 3-story building that had one door in it, no windows in it, and she was interpreting messages in that building, the same thing that she would have been doing if she was in Saudi Arabia. And nobody was allowed to even stop around this building. It was a high security building because the only thing in it was electronics. And so she wound up having her first child, little Aaron, when she was in the service. And we drove over there as hard as we could get it. We were there one day late. The baby was born when we got there. But LaMelle's father was in the service. So we've got a lot of a grandfather, father, son, and a daughter. We've got a lot of veterans in our family, and we are very proud of
We are
everyone.
very,
Thank you
very
for
proud of
everyone.
you. Very proud. Absolutely. Ronell was telling me earlier this morning about their little great-granddaughter.
Yes.
You can go ahead and tell them.
Well, my daughter, Grace, the one that was in the service, she is, when I was talking to her, she said that, she said that she went up, was invited up to her granddaughter's school, which is my granddaughter. And anyway, she was invited up there, and so she went up there. They had all those that were were veterans come forward, and so she went forward, and they were celebrating the veterans, and so then they had her to tell her what service she was in, and all. She told them she was in the U.S. Army, and what her name was, and she's an attorney. And then her granddaughter came up, and they all had a special Veterans Day program for all the veterans there that morning with the grandchildren. So it was really special.
Just, yeah.
And Aaron,
Try to keep it focused.
And he was inside one of those big tanks, and he was telling about what Aaron does.
He was in when he was in Iraq. He was in one of the tanks where he was listening to the messages over there to determine what was going on around him and all that. So he was in a tank where they would get further into Iraq and listening to
the chatter and everything.
Yes, to everything going on, like the chatter, like that. Yes.
He was in a pretty dangerous location.
Yes,
while
he was.
there serving.
Yes.
But the Lord brought him back home safely.
I'll tell you something about Aaron. Okay, I want to tell you this about Aaron. He was on the base over there, and one of the high-ranking officers come up to him and said, Aaron, he knew that he spoke Arabic. He said, go over there to that guy driving that truck and ask him what he's got on that truck. He never had gained entrance to the place. So Aaron walked over there to him. He said, what have you got in the truck? And the guy told him, he said, breakfast. And he walked back to the high-ranking officer, and he said, I wanted you to speak to him in Arabic. He said, the guy's not Arabic. He said, well, how did you know that? He said, well, all the Arabics wear silk. He said, this was a working guy. Said, he's not, said, that's just a regular guy. He said, well, I could have done that. He said, well, that's what you should have done.
No, I want y'all to tell one more thing about Aaron. What happened while he was over there? What happened at home in Azle?
Oh, yeah.
While he was over there.
Well, while he was over there, every year the Azle Band Boosters gives away a new pickup at homecoming. And the tickets are sold, and I believe they're $100 a piece. Could have been $200. I don't remember for sure. $100 a piece. So he calls home and he tells Linnell, he said, take $100 of my money and go get me a ticket for that pickup. And so you can only call like once every 2 or 3 weeks. But 2 or 3 weeks later, he called back and he said, y'all get that ticket? We said, no, we didn't get the ticket. He said, well, it's my money. Go ahead and get me a ticket. So we wait only in 2 or 3 weeks. He calls back and he said, they're having that drawing tonight. Have y'all bought that ticket? And we said, no. He said, look, it's my money. I want to go buy me a ticket for that pickup. So I sent our other son down there with $100, and he bought a ticket. At 9 o'clock at night, the phone rang. Said, we want to speak to Aaron Pinkston. I said, well, you're going to have a lot of luck on that. I said, he's in Saudi Arabia. And they said, well, did he buy a ticket? And I said, yes, he did. They said, well, he won that pickup.
And Edward was there when they called his name. Edward was there.
They were at the ball game when they
Yeah,
called
yeah.
And Edward was screaming and yelling, "That's my nephew." It was so funny.
That's my nephew, and he won that pickup. Well, it had 3,000 miles on it before he even seen it, because it's a year before he come on.
So who was driving that pickup, Charles?
Linnell was. I didn't drive it. He said, tell Mom to drive it to work. She was working, and that's why she put the mile on it, because she drove it every day to work.
Yeah.
It was a nice truck.
And what's ironic about that is right after our dad died, Charles had bought a new, was it a 65 Chevrolet?
64 Impala.
A 64 Chevrolet car.
Yeah.
And Daddy took it, I guess Daddy co-signed for you,
Yeah,
didn't
it's the
he?
only time in my life that I ever had a co-sign on a note, and Dad co-signed on me. I think I'd made one, possibly two payments on it, and the insurance company called me and said, your car is paid for. And I said, how is it paid for? And they said, we had credit life on your dad.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't have traded all the cars in the world for
no,
my dad.
absolutely not.
But I had no earthly idea, and that car was paid for, and I had only paid one or maybe two payments on it.
I don't know if you remember that it was a blessing. I don't know if you remember this or not, Charles, but I remember when you got out of the car and you found out that your car was paid for, you threw your shoes over the Highline wire. You took them off and threw them over the Highline wire. Do you remember that? I remember it like it was yesterday, because y'all have to understand this was not a good time for
but
us.
I don't doubt it,
It was
though.
right
I was
after
pretty
Daddy
happy
died.
about that.
But it was something really nice that happened in a sad time for us. And Daddy had the forethought to do that. If he hadn't have, Daddy was a smart man, and he had the forethought to do that. But we have some more people come in, and they haven't. I don't think they come over here and sit down yet. But I know we've talked a lot about veterans today. Mary, you haven't talked much. Is there
Well,
something
that's
you want to
okay.
say?
No, I'm just proud of my husband, and my husband was very proud to be a Marine. It taught him a lot. He was 18 when he enlisted, and he was. From what I can understand, I didn't know him when he was 18, but I think he kind of had a little attitude. He was 18, and the first day that he the first day he arrived in California, they got right off the bus, and he was chewing gum. They had him all lined up, and the sergeant or whoever it was that was fixing to talk to him told Bobby to spit his gum out, and he didn't spit his gum out, and that officer, he throwed him on the ground. He said, you obey whatever command I give you from now on out, you obey it. So he said he learned the first day that when the officer spoke, you done what he said.
Let me say something about Bobby.
Okay.
Bobby was a proud Marine.
Yes.
Mary and Bobby lived out in the country from Henderson, and they had a neighbor that had a flag, a United States flag in their front yard. And this flag was tore up. It was beyond, it looked awful. Bobby stopped, goes out and knocks on the man's door. He said, I'm a United States Marine, and I'm proud of the flag, and that flag you're flying out there needs to be taken down. He said, it's tore all to pieces. He said, I fought for that flag. The next day, the man had a brand new one hanging up out there.
Yeah, Bobby was proud to be a Marine. He was served 4 years. Now he could tell you, and I forgot the days. It was 4 years, 6 months, and some days, and I forgot. But he didn't forget, because he was extended because of the Vietnam War. He had a few more days. I think he was enlisted for 2 years or 3. I don't know how many, but he had to serve longer because of the Vietnam War. And he served for it, and he came home, and he did have Agent Orange, but the Lord, he took care of us anyway. But he had a lot of pride. He had a lot of pride of being a Marine.
Yes.
He taught our kids that too. He was, and I guess I don't want to get started on it, but he was the neatest man I had ever seen.
I think the military does that to you.
He was so neat. because I was used to taking care of anybody in the household, and he wasn't like that. When he came in, he took his shoes off. He polished his shoes every night. He polished his shoes, and he was just, he never laid anything down. His clothes, he always hung them up. And I told him one time, I said, that's my job. I'm supposed to hang your clothes up, and I'm supposed to do all these things for you. And he said, well, I'm taking care of myself. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so he taught me a lot of things too, about all that. But I was proud to be married to him.
Yes. We got some ladies standing over here. If you ladies want to come over here and sit down, y'all are welcome. These are, y'all want to come over here and sit down?
All right, we have some more, so we probably need to get off and visit with them a little bit, do you think?
Yeah, in a minute, but I'm not quite ready to get off yet. So my husband, Mike, he joined the Air Force, and he left Sydney, Ohio, the day after he graduated. It was in 1970, and he joined the Air Force, and he was, like Mary said, military people are very, they're in a league of their own, and he was the only person in his squadron that was not sent to Vietnam. I always feel like that God did that for Mike, because Mike is, a kind of a nervous person, and he was sent to Germany. And he served his time there, and he has lots of stories he could tell about Germany. They were in some very dangerous situations, not in war, in actual fighting, but on the planes and different things. But when he was first in the Air Force, they would give out passes, hall passes, or passes, whatever, to leave the base or something, for the person that had the cleanest room in the barracks. Mike wanted every time, and they finally quit giving it. They said the only person that ever wins it is Dalton, so we're just going to quit giving them. But y'all, all my family that knows, Mike is a very articulate, and he's like that with the flag. He believes the flag should be disposed of properly, and he is very particular about it. You better not let a flag touch ground, because if you do, that flag needs to be disposed of. So he will probably have the flag out today when I get home. If it's not raining. If it's raining, he'll wait to put it up. But again, we want to thank all of our veterans and for everyone watching us. And is there any story before we get off that Charles might want to tell, something funny?
Do you have a funny story to tell, Charles?
Charles has got so many stories that he could tell.
We're trying to pass these mics around.
Well, I've got lots of stories, and
Sit over here if you
we've
like.
always
You don't want to? Okay.
tried to enjoy ourselves, and I'm just trying to think of one that I haven't told you before.
Well, I don't think this one, I don't think you told this one on while we were taping, but some of the jobs you had when you were a kid, like when you worked at the Ford place, and
Well, yeah, I was a mechanic at the Ford place. When I was a young man, I never, ever had to look for a job, because I was a worker. I'd just go out if I wanted to go to work somewhere. I'd go out and apply for a job, and I'd get it. So anyway, I went to work at the Ford place, and they had this car that they had brought in there, and it was a Lincoln, and it was just idle perfect. I mean, they put machines on that thing, and it just absolutely perfect until they got about 50 miles an hour, and then it wouldn't run any faster. And we're talking a Lincoln Continental. And they had the best mechanic in that shop working on this car, and they changed everything, and they did all the electronics and spent a ton of money on it, 50 miles an hour, as fast as it would go. So I went down to a machine shop, and I knew the guy that was running it, named Cecil Phelps. He was an older man, used to be a mechanic, and I told him about it. And he said, the first thing I would check would be the exhaust system on the car. He said, sometimes those tailpipes have a liner on the inside of them. And I said, I think they've checked that. So I went back down there, and I told them, I said, have y'all checked the exhaust system on that car? And they said, well, it's got good mufflers on it. I said, well, why don't you disconnect them and try it? They disconnected the exhaust system and cranked it up, and a 464 engine is a big engine. And they drove it down the road and come back and said it'll run 100 miles an hour. So they took the tailpipes off and they started cutting it with a hacksaw.
Oh, goodness.
Nothing. Every foot they would cut it up. And when they got back to where the tailpipe made the little circle over that rear axle, they cut it and the middle pipe had collapsed. And it just had letting a little bit of airflow go through it. And when it got up to about 50, the exhaust wouldn't come out. They put a new tailpipe, and the manager of that board place come up there and said, "You are our top mechanic." And I just told them I never even touched the car.
Okay, one more Tipton Ford, and then whatever y'all want to say. The car that they told you to go out and bring it in the shop. And,
The brakes.
Oh, that was, I was in high school then, and my goodness, I probably was just barely old enough to have a driver's license, but I did have a driver's license. It was Wedgeworth Buick, and I worked on Friday evening and Saturday. And on Saturday, it would depend on how many people was in there as to what time they closed. Normally 5 o'clock, but if there was nobody in there, the manager would come, and they was Jimmy Grimes and Mr. Wedgeworth were the owners. And Mr. Grimes, and of course, they kept the cars parked on the outside. And he told me, he said, "Charles, we're going to close down about 2 o'clock. He said, "Get all the cars in." So I go out, and I couldn't move then. Now, right now, I'm using a walking cane and walk slower than my wife. I used to be 3 steps ahead of her. Now I'm 3 steps behind her. Well, anyway, I'd run, not getting them cars, and I'd bring them in the shop, and I'm talking, I am cruising. I go out and I get in this car and I come in the shop and I come in the door and I touch the brakes and the brakes go right to the floor. And I run into the wall and tear up the front end of that car. And he said, "Well, they brought it in here for no brakes." Well, I didn't know that. So I didn't go to work the next Saturday. They called the house. They said, "Where's Charles?" She said, "He's here." And she said, "Well, why isn't he at work?" And he said he figured he got fired. He said he didn't get fired. Tell him to come on down here. That's not his fault. So anyway, I wrecked that car. I mean, really wrecked it.
Well, Charles talking about he's walking slow now, and he is so right about him used to walk fast, because I used to follow him around and he would be so far ahead of me and I would be running. And so I kind of took after. That's the reason I walk. That's why I think I walk so fast, is because he taught me I had to run to keep up with him. So age does things for you, though. But
Yes, but we're really glad that they came out this morning, and we talked about singing a song, but we never did really say if we were going to sing it or not.
probably, what song was we gonna sing?
God bless America.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
We'll just go out sing it.
Pastor's wife for a church here.
Oh,
My husband pastors Family of Faith Church here in Sherman.
Okay.
And I'll just say, if you are not watching these ladies, you are missing a blessing.
thank you so
This is
much.
just like sitting on the couch with my family. That's my Uncle Humpy, that's my mother, and this is my Aunt Eileen. You know,
Oh,
so
Thank you so
thank
much.
if you want a blessing, that's where you
Thank
can find
you.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming. And,
Yes.
and of course, Sherry Ann and Larry Ann,
Yes.
they come.
They came
Anytime
even
they
early.
can,
They've
yes,
been several
to-
times,
to
and we
visit
feel like
with
they're
us.
family too already. Yeah. Okay, let's sing that song, I guess.
Well, somebody needs to pull it up, make sure we don't say the wrong
Oh,
words.
okay.
Get
Well,
off on the wrong foot.
well, we might have to clip that another time then, because or let's.
Yeah, if y'all really want to sing it,
Yeah, but you have to lead us. Say, we follow you. You lead us, and
Yeah.
we follow you with God bless
I sprung it
America.
on little Linda and Carla last night. I hadn't even mentioned to them about singing. And I know they don't
What
like me
did they
doing that.
sing?
They sang the same song they sing, and it always is if you're headed this way, Jesus, they sang at Mother's bedside, and they know many other songs, and they sing good.
Yeah,
But
you have some though that you're just used
That's
to,
just
and you
one.
can harmonize
Yeah.
good on it. So that's good. Yeah.
Linnell's brother was in a.
My twin sister and I used to love to sing
Get
and
the mic up to
harmonize.
your-
My twin sister and I That's my twin sister passed on, but she and I love to
Yeah, it's a
sing and
beautiful
harmonize,
thing, yes.
and just we always loved music.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you do. And you still got a beautiful voice.
Yes.
Did you get the songs? Okay. Lead us.
Bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains, through the valleys, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Happy Veterans Day to everyone, and thank y'all for watching us. Thanks again to the First Baptist Church in Sherman last night, Kim and Brenda and Pastor Lawson, all the ladies that work so hard, and to everyone that watches us from home. We couldn't do this if y'all wasn't watching us, and we appreciate it so much. Be sure to share our page. Do we want to tell them that we hit over?
We hit over 450,000 last night. So thank y'all all for following us, and we appreciate that so much. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one of these days we're going to hit the million mark.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
God knows who needs to hear
That's
us,
right.
and so we just leave it in His hands. But we do
That's
love
right.
each one of y'all.
Right.
Thank you.
So stay safe, and thanks again for watching us. We love you, and God bless America.
And don't forget to count your blessings. Bye-bye.